The heroes of Adventure is Nigh are courageous, mighty, and cuddly? Well, now they can be. Mortimer, Dabarella, Grinderbin, and Sigmar Iceblood are available in plushie form, each with their own adventuring accessory. Display them, hug them, or have them perform in your very own Adventure is Nigh fan fiction. We don't need to talk to every NPC. Yeah, instead, let's make a quick and decisive plan. Get your Adventure is Nigh plushie now at sharkrobot.com or click on the link in the description. And for a limited time, you can buy all 4 at a reduced cost. I'll try the path the Dungeon Master intended me to. Oh blimey, this time I won't use deception.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Bonjour, buongiorno, willkommen nach unserer Podcast. I'm Yahtzee Groshaw. I'm joined by Jay and Marty, as always.
Oh, yeah.
And Marty's got a bit of a jaundice, I've just noticed.
He's got jaundice?
Yeah. You've come over all yellow.
And now it's stopped.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Eric. Always a pleasure. But this week on the Windbreakers podcast, we are talking about the joy of solving mysteries in games. Possibly as a none too subtle excuse to gush about blueprints for a while. But generally speaking, the joy of playing games that make us feel clever.
How do we do that? It's tough.
So when I was jotting down some notes for this.
Okay.
And I said, what's the difference between a puzzle and a mystery? I feel like there's a difference. I feel like we're not talking about puzzle games. We're talking about little mysteries. I wanted to know what the difference between those are.
I think puzzle is a word that gets thrown around possibly too loosely these days. I've heard people refer to platforming challenges as jumping puzzles. And when you had to press 2 buttons to open a door that were in different parts of the room in the original Quake, they used to call that a puzzle as well.
Sure.
Anything you need to figure out, I guess. You need to think differently.
I think the deciding factor really is just that it makes you feel clever to figure it out. I mean, I made the point frequently that the established video game genre conventions are kind of bullshit. And the only real way to categorize video games is how they're intending to make you feel. Some video games make you feel powerful, some make you feel numb. Some make you feel relaxed. Some make you feel like you've got the wind in your hair and you're having a fun traversal experience. And some games make you feel clever. And that is what we're talking about. Mystery games, puzzle games.
Yeah.
And if a game... Sorry, I was done. I was just meandering.
That sensation, you're just meandering. That sensation of feeling clever, I think, is something that video games can do better than any other art form. I know I tend to feel differently about a lot of things than you do, Yahtzee, when it comes to you saying, oh, there's certain things like a video game can tell a story better than other mediums, or they can do horror better. I do think that sensation of delivering a sense of feeling clever to the player is something that is very singular in games that I do not get from movies or even like mystery box TV shows or anything like that, or even like a mystery
Why do you think that is?
I think it's it's truly the active participation there. It is until you solve this, we cannot move forward. Whereas you can watch a movie and be like, I don't know what's going on now, and the movie's going to solve it for you eventually, or it's just going to leave it ambiguous and you're going to have to piece it together like Twin Peaks or something.
But at the same time, there are video games that adopt a sort of no child left behind attitude with their puzzles that don't make me feel clever.
Yeah.
I think a lot of point-click adventure games have the problem where it's not so much feeling clever as finding the one thing the designer thought of.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, it
almost feels like you're more of like a psychologist trying to like psychoanalyze the developer and trying to be like, what were you thinking when you made this?
Yeah, we called that the cave story problem at uni, where we were warned against, because Cave Story is a game that is really good and was revolutionary in a lot of ways, but also its puzzle designs are what was the dev thinking when they made this, and it's so hard to decipher that because there's just no through line, there's no connection. It just feels very odd. It's not like there's an obvious solution and the rest is obfuscated. It's just what is happening. So you've got to avoid that.
I remember fondly the Discworld adventure game, which was designed alongside Terry Pratchett, the author of the Discworld books. And that had shit like you needed to block someone's chimney to get them out of a room so you could steal something. And your inventory was full of useless crap. But there was only one thing you could use to block the chimney. Everything else would just elicit it. That doesn't work.
Oh.
The only thing you could use was a stuffed Father Christmas doll. I mean, theoretically, anything you could block a chimney with anything. You can sort of see the logic of using a stuffed Father Christmas doll to block a chimney. But I think part of the problem was it wasn't immediately clear that you were supposed to block the chimney either. You just knew you had to distract this guy somehow.
Well, that puzzle makes sense if you understand you need to block the chimney, and that is the solution, right? You're like, I need to block the chimney. What in my inventory could block a chimney? Oh, Father Christmas, he goes down chimneys. Let's see if this works. I get that logic. But like you said, does it try and communicate that at all? Like, you need to block this chimney?
Not really. And I would argue that situation doesn't make you feel clever. You sort of, when you solve it, you just sort of click your tongue and go, what the fuck was that, designer?
Yeah. So within the idea of like puzzle design and how other games do it, I don't know if you guys have examples. What are examples of some puzzles that have made you, or mysteries, sorry, let's define them, that make you feel clever? Like, what are some examples that you have?
Return of the Obra Dinn.
Who saw that coming?
8 minutes, the first Obra Dinn mentioned. But yeah, honestly, that's a great example from the last decade. Yeah.
Best thinky mystery game ever. Requires you to also know like a baseline amount of about maritime practices in like the 18th century.
Yeah, and there's it's a really good slow unfolding of a mystery, and every time you add one piece to the puzzle, it kind of illuminates a few more pieces, and those pieces aren't necessarily the pieces connected to the one you just figured out. It can be something like, oh, this character had a brother, and I know her original last name before she got married, and so this man with this last name is her brother. That kind of thing. There's a slow unraveling to the mysteries in Obra Dinn that I think works really well, and also what we talked about, the incredibly smart kind of three, like you can only lock in correct answers once you have a group of three. That creates a really nice sensation.
There's an inherent danger to designing games like this. I'm really grateful to Obra Dinn and Blueprints for pushing the idea of puzzles that solutions do not exist directly in the room you're stood in. You are gathering information, and this, we mentioned it a little bit in the last podcast when you weren't here, Yahtzee, but the idea of, as a designer, you cannot effectively do a check on the player's knowledge. You can provide them the piece of paper that has the thread to pull to get the information, but you cannot, tick a box that says they have understood that piece of paper, or even acknowledge that they know it's important. And designing games like this means that you can spread your puzzles out across your entire world, and and I think that's where a lot of the fun comes from, is being somewhere completely innocuous and then being like, oh, holy shit, this is the answer to that thing that I was thinking about 5 hours ago. That's really satisfying, but it's incredibly dangerous to do things like that, because you can't give fail safes and safety nets for players when you design a game like that. You just have to hope they figure it out, and that's tough.
Well, I would dispute the point that you can't check that the player's up to speed. I mean, Obra Dinn and a lot of detective games like it, they have the format where, I mean, it sounds lame, but basically you have to fill in a quiz, like you're doing a comprehension test. Fill in this blank, who killed such and such? And once you filled that in, we can proceed, because you got it right. Also, not to toot my own horn, but I've made a couple of mystery adventure games back in the day.
Yeah.
And the measure I used to make sure the player was keeping up with the plot was that at like the start of the final act, I had a character come up to the main character and say, I'm not sure I've gotten like to grips with this mystery. Shall we compare notes? And then I had a sort of dialogue tree where they presented one of the game's central mysteries, and you had to like provide the answer from a list. And if you got it right, the game would. If you got it right, the character would go, "That's right. That was my conclusion too." But if you get it wrong, they'll subtly correct you, and that way, every player can go into the ending feeling like they know what's going on.
Yeah, I like those little kind of exams that sometimes they're episodic or at the end of a chapter, other times they're at the end of a game. But like a lot of games with like literal courtrooms or like trials or accusations do that. So your Phoenix Wright, your Danganronpa does that at the end of every murder. The game Paradise Killer did it really interestingly to where there's a series of crimes that were committed in the major murder, and you explore this little open world, and you try to figure out like everyone in the world is a suspect for every one of these crimes, and you can go to the end of the game at any time and just present your case and say, I think X broke in, I think Y helped Z do the actual murder, and I think the other character covered it up. And the game never tells you if you were right or wrong. It's just like, well, this was the case you made, and
See, that kind of doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm an old school New York Times puzzle page filler outer kind of puzzly man, but I always want the game to tell me if I was right. I've played a lot of detective games like you're talking about. What was that one? Pentiment sort of does that. Some of Frogware's later Sherlock Holmes adventure games did that to an extent. And I want to know if I was right. Sorry. I want to... that's essential for me feeling clever. I don't want to feel like the game's just going, hey, interpret your own way, man.
I really like that. I like when a game leaves me with that. I like when art leaves me without everything tied up. That's something I have to kind of dwell on, that there's a sense of, I'm not sure. It's the is Deckard a replicant or not at the end of Blade Runner, or is the top at the end of Inception going to tip over? I like kind of living in the liminal space between two truths.
Well, where's my satisfaction at having outsmarted the game's mystery?
See, I get both of your perspectives here. I'm really interested to ask you, Marty, because being told you're correct is effectively like solving the puzzle room. The reward in the room is progression, right? You are definitively told you are correct. You move forward, you move on to the next thing. Yeah. With solving mysteries or, detective games and stuff like that, convicting the criminal and being like, you are correct is in a sense the progression point and leaving the room. But when it doesn't tell you, my question for you, Marty, is where is the satisfaction in you accusing someone and then it being like, you could be right, move on, or you're putting an innocent person to death, move forward?
I think the satisfaction comes from the work, not from the reception to the work. So it's almost like if you turn in a term paper at the end of a semester of school and you're like, I did a really good job, I don't even care what the professor has to say.
Okay.
So it's kind of like in that space of where you feel, I guess, Yahtzee, you directly mentioned you want to feel like you've kind of one-upped the game, that you've proven your cleverness to the game, whereas I kind of want to feel like I've proven the cleverness to myself.
Well, obviously, I'm coming at this from someone who's very video game focused as a critic. But for me, you saying you don't care if the game tells you if you are right or not, that feels like the equivalent of playing something like Dark Souls and the game not caring whether you beat a boss or not. Like either you kill it or it kills you, but either way the game continues. I feel like if the game doesn't reward you for actually beating the boss, aren't we sort of missing something fundamental here?
No, I think it's just like we've talked about this in a lot of scenarios. That's not the kind of gratification I get from games. For me, it's the experience or the ride, and it's not at certain checkpoints I have proven myself to the computer or to the designer.
That's fair, but it's all different stools on the three-leg stool, isn't it? Context, challenge, and catharsis.
My stool just has one leg. It's just a pogo stool.
Yeah, that's pointing upwards.
well, that still would be very difficult to sit on.
Dundum, absolutely Dundum.
I think I get a lot from this, right? Because the game I'm currently making is one of its 3 pillars is effectively a puzzle mystery game. So the idea of like how you guys are reacting to confirmation of puzzles being solved, and like, what do you guys think about puzzles that not necessarily don't tell you the answer if it's correct, but have multiple not solutions but also outcomes? Like, how do you feel about that?
Well,
Mainly
I feel well, my sense is the one outcome is always going to feel like the correct one. Like when you have games that have multiple endings, I'm always going to feel like one of them is the bad ending or the ending that wasn't intended.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe I'm just a chippy little autodidact, and I just want to be patted on the head by an authority figure. But I want the game to tell me that I did the right thing. Frankly.
Sticking with that a little bit, but then also zooming out, a game like Blueprints, or say Animal Well last year, or Void Strangers a few years ago, or even something like The Witness. One of the things I like about the way they dole out their puzzles or mysteries are that it feels like there's almost stops on a train. Like I think we talked about Animal Well in that there's almost like 3 different layers to it, and you can get to the end and kind of roll the first set of credits. You can find all the eggs and kind of roll the second set of credits, and then there's kind of the more communal mystery, which is like the crazy stuff. That's the like, it takes a village to solve this kind of stuff. Yeah, and I think Blueprints absolutely has that. It's you can get to the final room, but then there's more, and then oh my god, there's even more. Like, and I kind of like that you can choose. Like I with Animal Well, I made it back to the apartment, and then I don't know if that is technically an apartment. I don't know if you're paying rent on your little hovel, but and then I got all the eggs. And then I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to tap out, and I will watch a video on what happened after this, because like this seems kind of above my pay grade, and I'm kind of like that with Blueprints as well, and not in a bad way, in a very exciting way. Yeah.
Well, puzzle games have to be like these days to have like lastability, because back in the day, this sort of like niche was filled by, of course, by the point-and-click adventure game. But then, of course, the age of the internet came along, where the moment you got stuck, you could go straight to a walkthrough and look up the precise solution for how to proceed. And to create a game where players can't just look up what to do next, you need to create something almost sprawling in its sensibilities, like Blueprints.
And it's also the same about what Marty was saying about the journey, and the act is the satisfaction. A lot of the ARG solutions for games like Animal Well and similar games, once you know the solution, they're usually quite simple. They're just obfuscated and hidden to fuck. And the satisfaction is the community coming together and solving them, not necessarily the actual solution to it being cohesive and interesting.
And it was. It also goes with something you mentioned earlier, Jay. Of I think part of the joy of some of these more kind of detective style things is having all of the evidence splayed out in front of you, and that's not obfuscated, that's not hidden, but it's you having to look at everything and figure out, all right, what does all this mean? Where does everything go here? And that's what that's what stuff like I think Shadow of Doubt does that. The games like Immortality and Her Story do that. Even like Tunic to a degree, where it's like, okay, I'm seeing everything, but how are all the pieces fitting together here? And I think that's a really good sensation that makes you feel like a detective, more so than putting on detective vision in Batman or an Assassin's Creed game or something. It's tough to do that, though. It is tough to like make you feel like a detective in a AAA space.
And so often in like your AAA games, the puzzles are just presented like do the exact right thing to proceed, and half the time they'll just put a big old objective marker indicator over it to show you exactly what it is, and they don't. And whether or not you're figuring it out yourself or just spamming through the dialogue is a matter of supreme indifference to the game. I always think that was a problem with LA Noire as well. It didn't seem to matter if you figured out the mysteries in that. the game would just find a way to soldier on regardless.
Yeah, and that was, man, I would love to see someone take another stab at LA Noire now with where technology's come 15 years later, because I thought it was such a cool idea of needing to look for facial cues and sort of, are you lying? But it just feels like where technology was at the time, they had to like overact. And so it was kind of like, okay, you are clearly presenting as a liar, as opposed to
the elderly man who's like,
yeah,
exactly. Like you had to, and that's
like I keep saying, the inherent flaw there is that they're actors, so they're always going to be lying, and you're asking the player to make distinction not between someone lying or telling the truth, but between someone lying well or someone lying badly.
Yeah,
and also assumed knowledge. Somebody, I cannot remember the name of the condition, but it's somebody might have a condition where they can't recognize facial expressions and like differentiate between faces. That's a mental condition. Also, people who are super into like watching detective shows and diving into people lying and stuff like that, they might find this game a lot easier than someone who doesn't deal with that stuff at all. Like, I think that's why in AAA space we see a lot of games with really dumbed down puzzles or dumb detective modes, because they want to hit the widest audience possible, and a puzzle that stumps you in Arkham Knight might cause 20% of their audience to put the game down and not touch it again. So they want to keep it, simple so that a wide audience can touch it.
It also leans into that thing we've talked about of sometimes visuals can get too good to where it would be hard to create a photorealistic room where what to sift through, like what can I interact with to try to find, that I think that's why, Shadows of Doubt works, because of the very stylistic visuals.
That was the problem I had with what was it called? Frontiers of Pandora, where there'd be like these side quests where you had to figure out a crime scene, and you're supposed to find all the evidence and like analyze it, but I couldn't see the bloody evidence because the game was so like thick with random vegetation and details.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, do you need to make things super obvious? And that's where yellow paint comes from, because things look so good that you kind of need to guide the player's eyes somewhere.
I think you can, even with like modern graphics, if you put the effort in and not just like splatter the environment with details and get like a proper direction into the visuals, you can still make it clear what's important and what isn't. I think Atomfall pulled that off pretty well. A game with no objective markers whatsoever. You just have to figure out what's the important thing you have to look for.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist, right, on the formula, which is you're not walking into a room and asking, what is the important thing I should be looking for? It's you are given the task to look for a specific thing in a wide environment, and that means you have focus and you have to use context for where these things would be, rather than I'm in an office and the game wants me to pick up this piece of paper, but there's like 800 books in here and a filing cabinet, right? How is it going to communicate that one piece of paper is the only interactable thing? Atomfall flipped the formula, which is really interesting.
How do you think? Do you think Indiana Jones handled that well?
I don't.
Good question.
I would describe Indiana Jones in retrospect as very mid, because I can't think of any of the puzzle element of that game that really leaps out in my memory.
I think it was less individual puzzles and more of the way like the Vatican is presented as this kind of an open world where no matter where you are going, you will find something interesting to do. And sometimes that is puzzly, but sometimes the puzzles are just, all right, look at this thing, and this guy's holding a sword, and this person's holding a grail, and this person's holding a shield, that kind of thing. Or take a picture of the right thing so that you scribble it down in your notes.
I think it might be fun to consider all the different ways a game can make you feel clever, because of course there's multiple kinds of intelligence. I like to think I'm an intelligent man because I enjoy filling out crossword puzzles, which tests, general knowledge, one's ability or to summon information, vocabulary, the ability to deduce what a word is based on what letters you've got already. And I tend to be good at puzzle-based games. I'm also pretty good at adding up. But I've always thought I'm kind of shit at emotional intelligence, as my wife will say to you when she supplies her laundry list of complaints at the end of the day. And something like Obra Dinn is all about, deduction, elimination, picking up on details. Something like Blueprints is about looking for pattern recognition, looking for connections between things.
Mm-hmm.
Memory is a big one, right?
Yes,
like
recalling
that's
stuff.
just yeah.
Do you write stuff down when you're playing these games? Do you guys keep notes? Do you take pictures? Do you have weird Word docs?
I take screenshots in stuff like Blueprints, and most of the time when games have puzzles, it's usually just find the piece of paper in one room that tells you what the code is for the lock in the other room. Yeah, and I take pictures of that. But when it comes to like deduction stuff, I don't usually take notes. I usually keep it all in my big clever brain. Another interesting thing you can do to make you feel clever is observation skills. I think Papers, Please is good for making you feel clever for having observed the discrepancies between different paperworks. There's also games like Portal and Talos Principle, which tests our ability to visually assemble like the solution by considering things like line of sight and accessibility and the physical layout of a puzzle space.
Yeah.
Sliding tiles.
Who doesn't love a good sliding tile puzzle now and again?
Give me that Sokoban. All I want to do
Move
is
the
Sokoban.
blocks. Yeah. I miss taking notes. I miss things being buried in manuals and like hidden away. I did you know Steam has a note-taking feature now that through the overlay that you can then pin to your screen, so it's always on the screen.
I did not know that. I just make use of Windows's screenshot utility that lets you clip the specific part of the screen.
Yeah, any way you do that. I want more games to give the player limited information and make them responsible for filling in the blanks and being like, instead of being like, here's everything, figure it out. It's like, here's everything, right? You don't have them all written down. You don't have them all connected. You have to determine what is an important piece of information. And you writing that down and determining that is important is part of the puzzle, right?
I'm trying to think of a game that tests emotional intelligence. And what's leaping to mind is playing the Persona games and picking the right dialogue option that gives you the best friendship boost with that character.
Yeah, knowing if someone wants tough love, if someone just wants to have their opinion validated or reaffirmed. Yeah. Actually, Persona does that relatively well, I would say.
Yeah, I'd have said so. I do feel satisfied with my cleverness and emotional intelligence when I pick the option that gives me the 3 music notes jumping about.
Mm-hmm. LA Noire's another one. I also think games do the emotional intelligence thing really poorly a lot of the ways because of how they do dialogue systems. I did that whole thing with my chat on. Oh my god, why is it leaping out my brain? Really good detective game.
Shadow of Doubt?
Oh my god, no.
Chance of
Damn. No, it's alright. It doesn't matter.
I'm keen to guess. Give me more details. What detective game?
It's kind of weird. It starts with you losing your shoe.
Oh, Disco Elysium?
Disco Elysium. There we go. I really like Disco Elysium. Made a video on it. Sorry, Kim. But in the video, I speak about how devs do dialogue systems and how they're designed to basically trick the player into thinking they're making meaningful decisions, but in reality, they're not. And because of that, we can run into a lot of issues where if you're trying to be emotionally intelligent with your dialogue choices, a lot of the times that can bite you in the ass. And an example of this I had was I was playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 before it came out with the devs, and it was in the opening of the game, and there was a situation where we were being accosted by a band of knights that were like, you shouldn't be here, and they were really angry with us. And my character was trying to calm down my leader and make the situation right. And I wanted to say something that would come across cool and collected and make my leader look good. And I picked it, and the first line of dialogue my character said was "fuck you," and I was like, "No, like that's not what I meant to say." Like the player, have a preconceived idea of how this sentence is going to play out emotionally based on what they have given me as a dialogue choice, but in reality, that's not what they say. So
the pitfall that makes a puzzle game annoying like that is where the game hasn't made it clear what tools are available to you. I think there's a lot of puzzle games that are annoying where I can't figure out the puzzle because I haven't found all the components of the puzzle I'm supposed to be using. Like playing Talos Principle and you haven't noticed that there's one of the little tripods you need, like hidden in the corner where you didn't notice.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating because you're trying to like put together a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Yeah. I like there was a game called Overboard a few years ago, and it was by Inkle, who do like a lot of kind of twiny choose your own adventure things, like they did Heaven's Vault and 80 Days and Highland Song. But it is you're on a steamship and you're like a couple hours from port, and there's a murder on board, but you are the one who committed the murder, and you have to pin it on someone else by the time you reach shore. So in every game, you need to figure out how to get away with the murder by like seducing a character and trying to like playing the femme fatale, or blackmailing someone, or like drugging someone, or killing the witness, or like planting false evidence, like that kind of thing. And it's like the details change every time, so you can get like, you know, it has a lot of replayability to it, but I kind of like the idea of a game where you need to get away with the crime, which I guess stealth games are kind of that. Like Hitman is kind of that in action form.
Like I've said before, I think I'd appreciate a game that was like Hitman, but where you had to like cover it up afterwards, clean up the crime scene, mop up the blood, try to shoot them while they're standing in front of washable furniture.
Yeah. That's one of the downfalls, I think, of those games, and stealth games in general, where I feel like the act of getting in is extremely entertaining and doing the task is entertaining, but then it just becomes escape, and a lot of the times that can devolve into just running.
You know, this is why
that's where it gets boring for me.
Yeah, this is basically why David Cage has a career, because everyone was really impressed by the beginning of Fahrenheit, also known as Indigo Prophecy.
Yeah, where you wake up in that bathroom.
Yeah, you wake up, you've killed someone, and you have to cover up the crime. And then in the next scene, you play as the detective, and you see all the ways how effectively you covered up the crime. And you have to do something similar in the next chapter when you wake up and like the policeman comes to your door and you have to cover up all the incriminating evidence in the apartment. As the game goes on, it becomes kind of shit, but everyone was really impressed by the start.
It was an incredibly impressive demo. I remember playing like, on a demo disc, playing the opening of Indigo Prophecy and being like, holy shit, this is next level. And then I think I've liked everything he's done less since then. Yeah.
I think everyone assumed it mattered when they played the demo. They assumed that it mattered whether or not you got away with the crime or not. And it really doesn't. No. David Cage's games being what they are.
Oh, David.
Yeah.
So did we have a point beyond, ain't puzzle games good?
I think there's something...
Massage your lovely brain, mates.
I think we touched upon it last week a tiny bit. Marty, you mentioned that in an episode of mine. I was speaking about puzzle reward moments and when you give that the idea. I'm interested to get both of your takes on this. In the video, I line out that within a puzzle, let's just say it's a standard room puzzle where you can't progress until you've done it. Once you figure out the solution to that puzzle, the time difference between inputting that information and solving it should be relatively short, because you've already had the reward moment, which is figuring it out. And if you know it's going to work, when it works, it's not satisfying, right? And in the video, I mentioned there's a puzzle in Abduction that takes I can't remember the time frame. It's like 20 minutes to like an hour or something stupid to do the puzzle, even though you figured it out fully. What do you guys think? Like, is there inherent satisfaction in knowing something's right but not getting the confirmation of that for a long time?
Oh, well, I do like a good reward moment. I always like
Yeah.
it in Obra Dinn when you get 3 right and they just pause the game and say, hey, wait, stop. You're all right. You're
Yeah.
a good man.
Yeah.
You're a good thinky brainy man.
Yeah.
But like that's a great example because that's a game where you might be pretty solid in your deduction of what's happened, but you don't know, and the game is then going, yes, right. It's less of like, I know for a fact the solution of this puzzle is to do X, Y, and Z, but doing X, Y, and Z takes me an hour. I think there's not much there.
I don't like when the act of doing it feels like a chore. I do like when a game takes time into account in terms of you need to be in the right place at the right time to do a thing. Something like, Majora's Mask or Outer Wilds, or even there's a couple puzzles in Blueprints without spoiling them where you figure out that the only way you could do something is if you do something at a very specific time during the day.
Yeah, I'd say Blueprints is all about delayed gratification because you figure something out, but you won't be able to act on it until you've built the specific kind of house that will let you act upon it.
And that's, I get, I feel like the response has been pretty positive to Blueprints, in our side of the fence, it's been very positive.
Well,
and I think
people have complained about the RNG, but I do think the RNG is important to giving you that sense of that you're following like rabbit holes of solutions, and you're not entirely clear if you've got the right one or not.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
No, go ahead, Jay.
We spoke about it briefly last episode when you weren't here. It's about the blueprints and the idea of. I think that idea of RNG and the roguelike elements really benefit the game for the first 2/3. I think it's fantastic. Rabbit holes, new information constantly being delivered to you, constant satisfaction of getting new things and thinking, what information am I going to get? What items am I going to get? That's really good. But you do run into this issue, and it's probably my one and only issue with Blueprints, is that, let's say, for example, the final room, not spoiling how you do this, but to get to the final room, I had figured out exactly what I needed to do it. I had solved the puzzle, right, in my head. I had the reward moment of this is exactly what I needed to do. But it took me 10 to 15 days, in-game days, to get the rooms I needed to do that. So I was just constantly just frustrated that I wasn't getting the thing I needed, right? And that's what we're talking about of we've had the reward moment, but then we loop it back. How, as a dev, do you know that the player knows what to do to then deliver the right rooms to them, right? It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, and I think with I shared a similar sentiment to you last week, Jay. But that only occurred for me once I'd put a lot of time into the game. Because the game is really good at, for the first 50, 60, 70 days of, you're always, even if you're kind of focused on one thing, you'll always find something else new to be like, okay, this is another thread for me to start pulling at. Even though I kind of want to do this one, rolling these things just gives me more to focus on. But it is that once you've reached that point near the end where you're like, this is the one thing I want to do, and I need to wait for the pieces to fall in, even though there's obviously some ways to put your thumb on the scale and manipulate the RNG. Yeah.
It means the game doesn't have very good replay value. I played it for weeks on the shared account and then got it for myself when it came out because I wanted to support the dev. Having all of the information on how to complete the game, you are just waiting for the stars to align. But that's just because not all games need to be infinitely replayable and stuff like this. I think I'll forever remember my first playthrough of Blueprints.
Well, you can always pass the time with the dartboard puzzles until you get the house you want.
They're great.
Little dartboard math. The last kind of these mysteries I wanted to just touch on before moving to super chats were how do you feel kind of when multiplayer comes into focus, either co-op or we had the rise of social deduction games like Among Us, where the mystery is trying to figure out who's lying.
As you know, I love to lord my intelligence over people, and lacking emotional intelligence, I tend not to do so well at that sort of social deduction stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to kick ass at Battle Royale, and I liked playing that. But I always get annoyed playing social deduction games because I have sort of resting, sarcastic voice, and everyone assumes I'm lying whatever I say.
I think you can do some really interesting things with multiplayer puzzle games. I can't think of any good examples. I'd love to dive into this. Well, Portal 2 multiplayer is
Sure.
a good example of that. But I have a problem with a lot of multiplayer puzzle games because they tend to devolve. Let's use It Takes Two or Split Fiction as an example. A lot of the puzzles in those games devolve into you have to do something at the same time as the other person, or do something so I can progress on my thing, and then we swap. Those aren't really puzzles. Like, they're not really things you're solving with different parts of information.
Portal 2 had some good co-op puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, once you've played through it once, you've already solved all the puzzles. And the annoying thing was to try to play that game for the first time with someone who'd already played through the co-op campaign. Because they just know all the answers.
And it was extremely frustrating for me because what would happen is I'd walk in and start struggling, and they were good. They would wait for me to figure things out. But it's so frustrating to know that the person next to you is stood there doing nothing because they know what to do. And you just feel so dumb because
it feels like they're over your shoulder, kind of just watching you struggle.
Yeah, and it's like you can inherit reward moments. Like if you're both trying to figure out a puzzle and then you suddenly figure something out, as your partner, I'm equally as ecstatic that we have come to this conclusion, right? And we're moving forward. It doesn't necessarily make you feel stupid because you're both piecing different pieces of information together. But when they know, it just feels terrible.
Yeah, I do like in co-op puzzle games where there's an asymmetry to what you are doing, and some of It Takes Two and Split Fiction had that, but more so games like Escape Academy or Operation Tango or We Were Here Forever, where part of it is needing to convey what you are seeing to the other person because they are not seeing things the way you do. With Split Fiction, it was less conveying because the screen is literally split. So even though Yahtzee and I were playing co-op,
you can see it
a couple thousand miles away, we could always see what the other person's doing. But those other games are literally I think Operation Tango is one where someone controls surveillance systems while the other one is physically trying to get through.
I played through that. I've completed that with a friend.
Communication skills, a whole other area of being clever.
That's what makes multiplayer games inherently satisfying. The biggest multiplayer games of all time, if you really look down to them at their core, not just through their mechanics, they all encourage communication. Among Us is all about deducing things through players' communication. How are they communicating? How are they trying to defend themselves? And the same for these puzzles. You have to communicate what to do and when.
Keep talking and nobody explodes. Coming up in the chat. That's
even that one. What's the one
six-player
social deduction game we would sometimes play? We're on the space station and you have to describe shapes to the other person that you're seeing.
First Class Trouble.
First class trouble. Yeah, upside down sun with a nipple or whatever. Yeah. Upside down sun. That's just the sun.
Yeah.
It is.
Shall we do super chats?
I'd be honored.
Starting with Alex Armstrong, who gives $5 and says, "Detective games are games I like but can't play. The pressure of failure on my first try is too much for me that I end up watching Let's Plays instead. Maybe you should play different detective games, Alex Armstrong. One that's more your speed. Play Detective
Paradise
Pikachu
Killer, and you'll
something.
never know if you failed or not. You could just
you
could just lie to yourself and say, I'm the smartest boy and I solved all of this myself.
I suppose that's one way that could be appealing. Tungsten Oof gives 25 HK dollars, Hong Kong money, possibly, and says, Chance of Xenar's pretty great. Really love how it lets you solve it incrementally and piece together the vocabulary, grammar, and syntax.
I played that for the first time last week.
Oh, nice.
I liked that. The translation-based puzzle game.
Mm-hmm. I thought it lost a little steam near the end, but...
I didn't like the mandatory stealth sections either.
I don't like those in literally any game ever.
Any game.
No.
Yeah. That game does a really good job of the thing you were talking about, Yachts, of like confirming you're correct. But it can do it in a way. I think one of the issues with that game is you can assume a word is correct, but pick the complete wrong word, but put it in the right area of the book, and it goes correct and just changes your word to whatever was right. And that can run the risk of making you feel dumb. Because, yeah, you're in the right area for the word, but it's like, well, it wasn't X, it was actually Y. But you're kind of right, so whatever.
Yeah, I think the human mind just goes, yeah, I was mostly right. That counts.
Yeah.
I'm still smart.
Mm-hmm.
If you got the right
Still a good
area, as it says. Yeah, it's a good game. Nidarom gives $5 and says, nothing will top solving the mysteries in The Witness and unlocking that final video. It changed my perspective more than any other piece of media. Yeah, it made you realize what a waste of time that had been. Is
that the one where he was pissing on the couch?
Probably, yeah.
I do still really like The Witness, if only. I like that, again, that like kind of subgenre of games where the puzzle is learning the rules to the game. Like Baba Is You is a little bit like that, where it's like everything is here and you can finish it whenever you want, but you need to figure out like what the fuck does this all mean? And I like the idea of each area kind of feeling like you're learning a new language.
I think what annoyed me about The Witness in the end is it's got all this sort of like random like videos and random text like alluding to some like larger story behind it. But I think eventually I flat out read something that said that he'd just literally just chosen random bits of footage to stick in the game and there wasn't really any meaning behind it at all.
Yeah, there was, for me personally, there was no like kind of narrative coalescing at the end. It was more of like the final challenges really feeling like a final exam of like, have you learned all of these different kind of puzzle rules, and can you display that in action?
Yeah.
Ryan Betts gives $2 and says, PSA, be extra nice to friends who watch The Last of Us today.
R.I.P.
Oh, are they doing like have they gotten to that bit in The Last of Us 2?
They did. Yeah. So now a whole new audience can be angry. Perfect.
Right. And they are. I've seen them on Twitter.
Yeah. I know.
I have a feeling there's going to be a drop off on like the popular opinion on Last of Us, much as there was with the games, because the first one actually feels like it had some, what's the word? Hopeful, sort of a hopeful air to it, and the second one is just miserable people making each other's lives miserable.
I don't think art needs to have hope in it, though. I think the way it deals with the cycle of violence and hurting people, I think is pretty impactful still.
I accept that, but I still really hated the process of playing The Last of Us 2 because I didn't like any of these people, and I felt like the best thing I could possibly do was just stop them causing any more damage.
Stop killing all of these dogs.
Yeah, just turn the game off. There you go. Problem solved.
A cycle of violence broken.
There you go. Raven gives $5 and says, week 1 of having nothing to ask or nothing to contribute to the conversation. Well, thanks for your time, Raven, and your money.
And money.
And then William Gibbs gives $2 and says, love a good mystery. PM Patience will watch VOD.
PM Patience.
They have patience in the PM?
They are a doctor currently servicing the Prime Minister and will watch the VOD later.
Okay.
Yeah, that one probably makes the most sense.
Yep.
Blistered Soul gives £199 and says, no work today. Blocked live streams can't stop me.
Yeah.
But what
it's
about
an Easter miracle?
Yeah, happy Easter, by the way, everyone. Hope you all had lots of lovely eggs to eat and friendship times.
Delicious.
Thank you, Jesus, for coming out that cave.
Easter was a pagan festival long before it was a Christian one. In fact, the word Easter is the name of a pagan fertility goddess.
Damn, there we go.
Yeah, you just like
the eggs
Super Saiyan into Johnny well, actually. That was incredible.
Look, pretty much every culture has a spring festival and a midwinter festival because that's the time everyone wants to party. You party at the spring because things are growing again. You party at midwinter because you got to amuse yourself somehow. And basically every culture already had one, and Christianity came along and said, hey, you know what the easiest way to make everyone Christian would be? Was to let them keep doing what they were always doing and just stick Jesus on the end. So that's what Easter and Christmas are. Some of the very few things we actually know about Jesus, the historical figure, was that he was definitely not born in the winter, and he almost certainly didn't die in the spring.
Classic.
Well,
Jesus.
no, he didn't, because he came out the cave. Think about it.
I'll shut up.
He's risen. R.I.P. Pope.
Like my bread.
Ah!
Dude, those banoffee tarts look so good.
Ah, yes. Those don't rise, though.
They rise to the occasion, into my mouth.
Bachi.
Yeah, look at those. I used gelatin to stabilize the whipped cream.
Oh.
You're like a scientist now. You're like
I know.
a bacon scientist.
Has science gone too far?
I like my whipped cream decoration, but if you just have whipped cream, then like the slightest touch is going to make it come off, and you'll get
Or
a
amount of
hand covered in
heat,
whipped
it just
cream.
like melts into it.
Yeah.
So does the gelatin kind of meringue it?
Well, it just sort of solidifies it, makes it. Still tastes like whipped cream, but it's like solid, and you can touch it, and your finger comes away clean.
Mm.
Other things you can do is to add cream cheese, but that adds a sort of tang that I wasn't sure I wanted to combine with my caramel flavor.
Mm.
And another suggestion I read online was to just add a sachet of vanilla pudding to your whipped cream. That'll stabilize it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because it has a similar amount of gelatin or something inside of it, right?
Yeah. Of course, it will make it taste a little vanilla-y, but maybe that's what you want.
Yeah.
Vanilla's great.
Where was I? Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, would you count twists in games as part of mysteries? I'd say so. I mean, I do like a game where you can sort of feel clever because you predicted the twist. That's why I hate games that sort of lie to the player to ensure that you don't figure out the twist. I said this about Sonabi, because the twist in that game, spoiler alert, is that the daughter you thought died in the intro did not actually die in the intro, but the intro flat out shows your daughter getting killed. And later it goes, you just remembered it wrong, and we showed you the scene wrong. And I was like, well, what fucking chance does that give me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like twists in any media, I think a good twist makes you want to re-experience the thing and be like, I see where all the breadcrumbs were, the Sixth Sense kind of thing.
That was another point in my video about twists in games. That's one of the rules of good twists. It has to recontextualize everything you've seen up to then, like Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than just being out of nowhere and just being like, okay, this thing happened.
Yeah.
I had the singular privilege of being able to watch the film Fight Club before it had been spoiled.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes,
That's
and
rare.
I really enjoyed it because of that. I thought, now I have to watch it again and see all the clues.
Yeah, I envy people who got to watch like Sixth Sense before it was spoiled for everyone.
Everyone knew the twist of the Sixth Sense before they watched it.
Because it was so good.
Did. Yeah. Snake in the Garden gives €5 and says, my no-no is cultural knowledge solutions, e.g. pin codes that use US date convention. Not good to have only one answer. Have two, e.g. 1225/2512.
Blueprints did that exact thing.
I think that's the exact puzzle. Snake's
that's the exact puzzle you're thinking of, Snake in the Garden.
Yeah.
I
guess you have to.
I guess I'm used to living in the US because I always enter 1225 for that one.
Sure. And does the game the game specifically states that it's in the US, right? But it does feel like you could easily do either.
It's not. Actually, it isn't. It's in a made-up country, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you can find that out if you look at the expansive lore of the game.
It's in Fakistan?
That it's set in a fake country that's made up.
Yeah, and their country's being invaded by Russians, right? And
by blue princes.
Their
like
mother is taken away / implied to be killed by Russian.
Family's got a lot of stuff. I'm gonna be honest, they got a lot of skellies in their closet.
Yeah, they really do.
Blistered Soul gives £1.99 and says, anyone play myhouse.wad? That game is all mystery. I've only watched video essays about it, but it does seem quite intriguing.
I've never heard of that.
if you can believe this, it's a Doom mod based on House of Leaves, sort of, or it's a House of Leaves style experience.
Yeah,
in a Doom mod.
Yeah, it seems like things like this have become very, very popular on the internet. And I've heard this one. I've been meaning to play this one for, I think, literal years ago when you told me about it for the first time. Yachts.
This is it makes me think of. So there's a game called Shipwreck 64 that was recommended by a fan. In the Discord, and I think I'm one of these people that I love watching videos breaking down kind of ARG elements in games and 5-hour-long videos that are breaking down the entire expanse of the game and all of its mysteries and stuff like that. I find that stuff incredibly satisfying, and I'm in awe at what the devs have done and the community to unravel that kind of mystery. But I do not like playing it. I started playing Shipwreck 64, and I wanted to play it because in the video, this however long it was, they were like, play it. If this interests you, play it before watching this. So I played it for a few hours, hit my first kind of ARG mystery, and just got stuck because the information just wasn't present for me. And I was just like, I'll turn it off and go watch the video. Right, I'll just go do that because I can get the same amount of satisfaction from watching it. So there's a fine line to walk with big overarching AIG things like that.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way where I almost prefer to experience a lot of those things. Like I was saying, even those top layer or those, I guess, whatever layer of something like Animal Well or that kind of has the communal thing. I'm like, all right, you guys figure it out. Someone cut it into a nice essay, and I will watch that essay.
Yeah.
Have you guys
100%.
played Ina Dream BBQ?
I have. Yeah, I played it last week.
I played it last week, and honestly, I was fascinated all the way through.
Oh.
What is this? Describe this to me.
It is a very, very surreal game. It's a sort of stream of consciousness game that's full of bizarre imagery, sort of in the manner of one of those classic RT CD-ROM games back in the day.
Okay.
And
there was a Japanese PS1 game called LSD Dream Emulator.
Yeah, I know that game.
Inspired by.
But this is sort of has a story running through it, but it's so near incomprehensible. From one dialogue to the next, I have no idea what anyone's talking about. But I just find it so fascinating in the same way I've always found stream of consciousness art fascinating. I mean, this is a really well animated game, so presumably whoever wrote it conveyed their ideas to their artists and animators well enough. But it's so fucking bizarre. You really have to play it to get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's really it's like genuine experimental outsider art in game form in a really interesting way, to where like Yahtzee said, I definitely, it washes over you. It's not all going to stick because a lot of it is just weird. But yeah, it reminds me a little like the Cosmo D games, or even there was that Radiohead kind of VR experience from a few years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
It's and Ina is free in its current form, so there's really no reason not to check it out. Check back in and let us know what the hell you thought the fuck was going on there.
Damn.
Yeah, it's cool. It's free, and then there's like a $10 like if you like this, you can buy this thing that has some like soundtrack and some art and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kind of like
where to start? I mean, the main character is like a sort of robot prism thing with two distinct personalities with different voice acting. Every character in the game speaks a different language. I mean, check it out.
Big swings. Yeah, it's neat.
Right, where was I? Sorry, I lost my place for a second.
King and Commoner.
Yes, King and Commoner gives 10 princely dollars and says, I reached room 46 on day 13 in Blueprints, and now I'm trying to clean up plot points. I definitely wish once you hit this point, you had more control over room selection or could get permanent items. Well, there are some things you can do to make things easier for yourself. Like do the things that mean you get more dice. Like I've got like the outside room. I've gotten to like the west grounds, and there's a specific room upgrade I've got that means if I have a tomb in my outside room, then if I create a certain kind of bedroom, then I get to get like 6 extra reroll dice.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, you end up there's as you press on, there are more and more ways, like I mentioned earlier, to kind of put your thumb on the scale.
Yeah.
But they're also dependent on RNG, right? The upgrade discs are, you don't particularly choose what
But
you get to upgrade. Because a lot of the upgrades you're describing, Yahtzee, I've never seen.
Yeah, the upgrades I've got some very useful upgrades. Like I've got the one that if you finish your run in the break room or billiard room, you get a free key card for the next day. And that basically means you never have to worry about key cards for the rest of the game.
That is insane.
Yeah. You look like your brain's bleeding. You're like, fucking.
Because then if you find the security room, you can set it to high frequency that they show up, and you're basically laughing when you get to the top rooms. That's nuts.
Alex Armstrong gives $2. Says, don't Sierra games insult you for failing puzzles? No, Sierra games insult you by killing you for the slightest error, but that's sort of the appeal. Because you can be killed and then just immediately load your last save. And some people
we were talking about that.
Some people just enjoy finding all the funny deaths in Sierra games, and usually there's quite a few.
There's a satisfaction in that.
Yeah. Blistered Soul gives £4.99. It says, gaming mag culture thrived with mysteries. L is real, Mew under the truck, Link is dead in Majora's Mask content, OOB. You guys have examples like that? There's a lot less of that these days because such things are so easily debunked. You can literally just pull apart the code of a game and figure out if it's true.
Yeah, it's almost become like a cottage industry of we know this isn't real, but let's pretend like an SCP.
Yeah,
spooky spaghetti.
I mean, people figured out PT on the same day it came out, and that was like, designed to be obscure. I do laugh at the one case in like Batman Arkham Asylum where they added an Easter egg you can only find if you blow up a specific wall like 50 times, and in the end they just had to tell everyone where it was because nobody fucking found it.
Yeah,
nobody thought to look for it.
I still hold out hope for like a lot of those things where it's mysteries in older games where you can't easily pick them apart like that have still never been found, and then people are finding. I get a bit of that satisfaction from speedruns and like watching videos from people like Carl Jobs, and he's like, this new technique has been discovered in this 30-year-old game and it completely breaks every convention of how it's going to be speedrun. I'm like, that's like a mystery to me, and I love that stuff. I want to try and put stuff like that in my game.
You know, every time I like click on like the search bar on YouTube, like the second entry, like in the suggestions, has been Karl Jobst for like a while now, and I looked at that, and it turns out like there's been a weird thing with him recently.
His
a lot of
lawsuit,
drama, a lot of drama YouTubers have been commenting on it. Like, they're all saying that Karl Jobst has been lying to his audience, and
his video explains it really well. Of like how he needed to not say things, but he was telling people what it was about and stuff, and he apologized for the miscommunication and stuff like that. I
haven't got into the weeds. Wrong. I don't really go in for drama on that sort of level.
Yeah, I've seen his response video. So
true crime, I'm all about. I've watched like 3 different takes on the fucking Joel Guy Jr. story.
True crime's great.
Who is
that
mysteries?
You know that guy? No, Joel Guy Jr., this dude who murdered his parents because they wanted him to leave the house and get a job.
Rude.
I don't know what his like long-term plan was. You know. Well, at least he got to. I guess he ended up living rent-free somewhere in a place called prison for the rest of his life.
Hey.
Kushti.
Where are we? Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, about my first super chat, what on games like Ace Attorney, where you get a game over and it makes you feel everything going bad in the end is your fault? Well, I guess you got to like let the player know they got it wrong somehow. I mean, we can't just hold your hand through everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's almost the equivalent of like, all right, I've explored this dungeon and I've leveled up and this is my strategy, and now I'm going into the boss battle, and then just getting your ass kicked. I mean, like, well, I have not prepared correctly.
Failure is a huge part of games.
Some might argue that the failure state is part of the definition of a video game.
Yeah, no, I will agree with that. I've had extensive argument, like shouting arguments. They were shouting, I wasn't. over me saying that I don't think this is really considered a game because it implied danger, but if you stood still, the danger couldn't kill you. And these the definition of what is a game is a contentious one for sure.
Yeah,
So much so that Jess has moved into frame in my peripheral vision and is staring at me right now.
Good. Jess is fighting the good fight because I've had to do this on several podcasts.
Let's not get into the weeds. Beneath 11111 gives 50 Swedish kronor and says, your pastries look great, but unfortunately you just made me imagine future pastries pictures with selfies with 2000s duck face and peace signs. I will never do that.
Never say never.
I asked my wife to set me a baking challenge, because I'm running out of ideas for things to make. And she said she's always liked chocolate pie. And she used to love the stuff like the chocolate pie they used to have at the Whole Foods, but they did something to the formula that now it tastes gross to her. So she wants me to make chocolate pie the way she remembers it when it was all nice.
That is a challenge.
Would that be a superpower that you could like recreate a taste from someone else's memory?
Well, I think I figured it out. Like the old chocolate pie, they used to just have like a sort of chocolate mousse on like a Oreo cookie crust. Mm-hmm. And tasting like the more recent one, I think what they might have done was they might have done what I did with my whipped cream and added gelatin because my wife tried out my gelatin stabilized whipped cream and she didn't like the texture of that at all, and that made my brain go ding. That's why she doesn't like the new chocolate pie.
Oh,
fucking gelatin!
See, that's like a puzzle right there. You solved a mystery.
Yeah, I solved a mystery.
You can, if you want to set yourself a challenge, you should keep making like layered cakes, but then keep adding a new layer every time.
Oh shit!
It's like getting buff and being like, I can lift more now. Like,
do that enough and then bake the Bible. Each layer is a page.
Think about it.
My God!
Bible
Make a phyllo pastry Bible.
Uncle Billy's Bible bakers.
Every individual layer of puff pastry inscribed with a different Bible page.
Jesus.
Just write it on with like edible
hand piped.
You've got 1 year till next Easter to do that.
And shit. Witticism. Oh, missed one, sorry. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, my favorite puzzle game is Manifold Garden, where you use gravity, infinite falling, and block puzzles to navigate an Isha-esque world and revive dead gardens. Yeah, I've played that. That's quite fun.
Yeah, that was like an early like not Portal like, but an early like first person puzzle game like that. Yeah, I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, I like the infinite recursion gimmick it has going on.
Yeah,
like if you get bored,
being able to jump off the end of a level and just see yourself fall forever.
Yeah. Witticism gives $5. There's nothing much to say this week. Glad you're feeling better, Yards. Keep up the good work, everyone. Yes, I had a bit of the old flu last week, but I seem to be mostly recovered. Just a little bit of phlegm that I'm in the process of coughing up.
Fucking phlegm, dude.
And then Tsunami Dusha, ooh, look who it is, gives $20 and says, guess what?
What?
Nothing.
He says nothing.
Oh, I get it.
That's the mystery.
Yeah. Mystery solved. Alex Armstrong comes back with another $2. Says, off topic, thoughts on Vaporwave? Cool or confusing? I have no opinion. I have no opinion on Vaporwave. Sorry.
Vaporwave is like a style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it taps into a kind of nostalgia that I personally have, just because I think I was like right around the time of I really do like late 90s, early aughts, like internet and technology and screensavers, like that sort of lo-fi early 3D. So I like it. It seems like an easy fallback people are using of being like, it's blue and purple. Look, it's Vaporwave.
Vaporwave Pinball.
Yeah.
It's made by a friend of mine.
Is it?
Oh.
Yeah.
John Vaporwave?
I spent a lot of time with him at GDC.
Oh, that's cool.
Ooh. Arc Mr. Address Book.
You do the same thing all the time. And David bring up H. Bomber guy. You're like, I DM with him.
Yeah, I met him once. Name drop. I shook Gabe Newell's hand once.
You haven't watched it since?
No. Just12 gives €2 and says, any of you know about Masquerade, the puzzle book? Nope.
No.
Puzzle book? That sounds fun.
Oh, it became the inspiration for armchair treasure hunts. I know about those. Those sort of like scavenger hunts that are all contained within like a single kind of box.
That sounds awesome.
For a second, I thought this said Cat Williams and not Kit Williams. I was like, Cat Williams?
Cat Williams made this?
The Cat Williams?
Oh
my
God.
eldest quite likes those Usborne puzzle books. Puzzle Party, Puzzle Circus, Puzzle Pirate, Puzzle Town, Puzzle School.
What are those? Are those like kid puzzles?
Yeah, they're like kids' puzzle books where like it's Puzzle Farm, and every page there's a new puzzle. Like,
that's
hey,
neat.
how do we split up this pig pen so that there's an equal number of pigs in each section?
Mm.
They're not that hard, but you know,
About the
they're for
pigs.
kids.
Good for
Sure.
kiddies.
Blistered Soul gives £199 and says Mystery of Deck Builder card synergies, Slay the Spire, Balatro, etc. Yeah, synergies. That's a sort of a new buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah, we talked about that a lot last week. That kind of one of the enjoyments of roguelikes is creating those synergies to where you can break the game. Like the imbalance is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
Yep. And finally, Orange Kitty, member for 17 months in the Green Gang, says, I came late. Hope Yards talked about Obra Dinn. Certainly did. Orange
He
Kitty.
did.
Less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Best thinky game ever.
Oh, and Lord Robert is also real.
Oh, yes. Member for 5 months in Tip Chat. Thank you very much. All right. Well, that's it for Super Chat.
Woohoo!
Thank you very much for listening to another meandering podcast from your pals at Windbreaker. Don't forget that if you like our content at Second Wind and you want to make sure it keeps happening, then the best way to do that is to subscribe to the Patreon for as little as $1 a month. One measly $1 a month. What the fuck else were you going to do with it? Like, buy 1/5 of a Starbucks coffee? Who the fuck knows? Why not give it to us? And then you can listen to me guilt tripping like this and think to yourself, I've done my part.
Mm-hmm.
And
He's
not
not
have to
talking about
listen.
me.
Yeah. You can be
And
like that
also-
smug. You're like that smug kid when the teacher's reaming out the whole class who assumes they're the only one the teacher's not talking to.
And you get things. There are benefits from joining the Patreon.
Yeah,
you know,
that
you
$5
get early,
Hurrah.
early videos. Yeah.
Yeah, $5 tier upwards, you get all kinds of Patreon exclusive videos, including like shit from me, like my Mortal Kombat lore video, which was the follow up to my Kingdom Hearts lore video that you might have seen because we put that out publicly.
Mhm.
And more besides. And remember my old video about how to remember the US states? That was a Patreon exclusive too, initially. Have we all?
I literally forgot
hope
about
we've
that one.
all-
That was great.
I hope we've all remembered all the things about how to remember the states. Remember, Alabama and Georgia are next to each other because they're the best pals, Al and George, standing together on a nice solid Florida.
That's
That's
the video.
insane.
The video that I feel gave me the best insight into how your brain functions, and it's terrifying.
I have a weird brain. I've often been told that.
Random.
Also, there's content all this week on Second Wind, as always, every day. Blimey. When do we sleep?
Never.
I, for example,
Never.
have my weekly fully Ramblematic review, which this week will be on the subject of South of Midnight, Compulsion Games' new action-adventure thing set in the Deep South. I've also got Yahtzee Tries on Wednesday, my usual stream of indie games and shit. And, of course, there's a new episode of Adventurers Nigh that I will be in on Saturday this week.
Ooh.
Oh, actually, I won't be in it because...
No. This will be
This
a
is
fresh
the
watch
other-
for you. Yeah.
This is the other half of the split, where we find out what Sigmar and Dabarella were up to, while Mortimer and Dabarella were
What a
Mortimer
mystery.
and Brindabin were cavorting about in the previous episode. So that's me. Oh, and Yahtzee Tries, of course, on Sunday, the edited video highlighting all the fun things I did in my Yahtzee Tries streams and my reviews. That's it for me. Jay, plug your stuff too.
Wow, damn. Today, a video just dropped of mine. It's a design delve on how a game having too much content can make a good game bad. Is that what it's called? I can't remember. I just made it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a video. It's a video that's just came out of mine. And along with that, later this week, we'll have Adventurers Night, which I'm going to be working on, and also Dev Heads on Friday. Topic, I should know what it is, but it'll be a surprise for you. Haha. And that's me.
Also sounds like it'll be a surprise for you.
I just have to look at the document. That's me.
Cool. And then tonight, normal time, Jesse, and Casey will be back for Hidden Gems, playing a game called Sea Frog. That's a new game. It's like a skateboarding platformer where you play as a cool frog. He's got a hat. Maybe you smoke cigarettes. Who knows? We'll see. Tomorrow.
Hey, I just wanted to point out that Julia Minamata's in the chat. Where the hell
Julia.
are you, Julia? You missed all the mystery talk.
You did miss the mystery talk.
We love you,
It's
Julia.
the truest mystery is what did we talk about this episode?
You'd think someone
tomorrow,
who likes the Laura Bow game so much would have been wanted to join in for that.
Hell yeah.
But never mind.
Tomorrow we have a new backdrop from Darren and the crew, as well as Nick will be on his normal stream with Jenna, 3 p.m. Central, playing something new. If Oblivion Shadow drops by then, maybe it'll be the Oblivion.
Well, nobody knows for sure if the Oblivion's actually coming out. There's
Schrodinger's Oblivion. It is both It is both here and not here. Yeah, normal streams the rest of the week. Metroid, Firelink, like you mentioned, Dev Heads, and then no Lords of the Fallen. But at that time, there'll be a sponsored stream for a game called Spell Rogue that Jack and Jess will also be checking out. So watch that on Thursday. Thumbs up.
All right. Well, that'll be it from us then. Thanks for watching again. Except you, Julia. Bye. See you next time.
Everyone.